So we get asked quite a bit for some more information on what we've done to our Ibiza race car. So I thought we'd do this little video. Probably going to end up half an hour long like they all end up. Can't seem to waffle on with these things. So this car, we run it in the MSV Track Day Championship, and this year, we did one race last year, but this year we run it in the Track Day Trophy as well, which sometimes they're on the same weekends, so we can just go to one place and do two races, which they're a 30-minute qualifier, 45-minute race with a mandatory 2-minute pit stop, and in that pit stop you can swap drivers, so it's perfect for me and Scott. We both swap over and have a go. Scott's going to race in the championship because he cries when I damage car or cause any problems at race, so it's easy if we just do trophy together and let him do championship. So we'll have a little look at car and what we've had to do to get it so it's competitive in this championship. It's a good one to be in, because like if you're into like the Civic Cup or Citroen C1 Cup or all these sort of offshoots and one make series, you've got to build your car to an exact specification. You can't do any tweaking, any extra mods, so it's all about the driver as such, whereas from a company perspective we want to be able to show what we can do in a more open environment. So this championship's based on power to weight ratio, Class B being the one that we've sort of got to, because the Class A and the Class S cars, they're all like cup cars, so TCR cars, stuff like that, they're 80-90 grand, so we're never going to compete, whereas the Class B, a lot of them are just road cars converted to track. So we need 175 horsepower per tonne, so that works out at, with this car weighing with a driver, with like 1250, 1280 kilograms depending on how much fuel load we've got. That works out at, we need about 220 horsepower, 225 maybe at the flywheel on our dyno. What that equates on the dyno at the track, that's an hub dyno, it's totally different, and they measure that at the wheels as well, so it's a bit of a pain. So at the minute we're experimenting turbo wise, we're not making any more power or getting any real benefit, to be honest, so we might take this off, but we've got one of the new GTD 2263s on there. That's water cooled, nothing too fancy. We're not pushing it to the death. If we had time, we'd put some big injectors in and see what we can do with it, but we know the extra power from doing that's not going to help us if we go into a Class A or a Class S. It's all about the handling. We normally run a 2260 on this. It works absolutely perfect. Never had one melt, never had one fail, and this gets absolute abuse every time we go out in it. If we push it a lot harder, things get hotter, but we've discussed that on other videos, that it's the hot cold that causes problems on stuff like this. So we'll start at what you can see. It's got an AEM dry filter, the one of choice that we use. We've put an hole in the headlight, sent a little scoop straight to there. So we've got to still run headlights in this championship. We can't take them out, but it's all going to work properly. Into the turbo, 2.5 inch downpipe. Got our inlet manifold, our boost pipe kit. This is all custom to this car. And then that, I'll just pop this bumper off, which is on quick releases. Absolute pain to do. Danny's done a better job with a camera in his hand. There's normally some bolts, hold that on at top. So we've got that going to just one of our standard 230mm intercoolers. These that you can see here are the brake ducts. I don't think you'll be able to see exactly, you might be able to see where they're going out bumpers off. But the idea of them is feed it straight into the vanes. We've also got the Mechan ducts on there, you can see. And while we're there, you might as well look at it. You see our extended ball joints there, so the idea of them, that's to lift the roll centre, which is another discussion, and to move it out to get more camber and more caster, which again, we've got a blog post about all that. So, oil cooler, big one. We swapped this to a Mocal because we had some oil temp issues before, and it turned out that the Mocal made absolutely no difference to the sort of generic ones that we normally sell. And the main problem we had with that was the placement of where it was. So we moved it, and it's fine. That's why the fuel cooler's down here, out of the way. This is not in direct airflow, so we put a scoop up to it. And then we've got another cooler here, which is, we've not really seen the benefits of it, and I hope we never do, but this is a gearbox cooler. We put that on there because at Rockingham we lost 4th gear going round the banking, which we think it were a surge problem as well as a temperature thing, but gearbox get ridiculously hot on these, and obviously got pretty much no cooling going to them, especially big front bumper. One of our aluminium radiators, and that pretty much sums up what we've got. For the racing, you've got to have these TDIs, which we did have like a seatbelt type material one, like a strap. And the problem we had with that is when we were looking at pictures, it were getting sucked into brake duct, so wearing them brake pads out quicker. The engine, it never started out with a fully built engine, but the only reason we did it is because we cracked a piston, which I mentioned in a different video about it. We had the problem we didn't have a thermostat in, and that were making it only run at like 60 degrees when we were cruising, and then you had to just kill it to get up to temperature. So we made these thermostats, these inline thermostats, put that in, and we've had no problem since. Running the electric water pump like we always do on our track and race stuff, but the engine, it's fully built, it's still on a 1.9, but we've done all the ceramic coatings and all that stuff just to keep it together. But I'd be very comfortable running just a totally standard engine, just with some 12.9 Pd130 head bolts. We'd be absolutely fine. Alternator all standard. We've got rid of aircon to get water pumping. Still standard fuel filter setup. Still standard lift pumping tanks. We don't really need to. We have no problems with fuel surge, even when we run it to the point where we'd think it was going to rise. It's probably only 2 litres of fuel in car, and it's absolutely fine. We've moved all this piece here. We've took all that out and chopped it out because we had a scrutineer tell us that we couldn't lift the back of the bonnet up, but things get a bit hot down back here, so we just chop that out and away you go. But on your road car, if you want to achieve the same, put a gurney on, lift the bonnet up maybe a little bit, it'll be absolutely fine. Kill switch, which you've got to have, part of MSA regs. Fire extinguisher button, not going to press it. That's all, and that goes to here. Fire extinguisher goes to here, and there's one inside cabin as well. This at the minute's got the steel wings that we had as a pattern for the fiberglass ones that we've just started selling. The reason we did the fiberglass ones, which we can do carbon as well, but the reason we did them, these took so long to make, to flare them just how I wanted, trim them just so that the wheels that are pushed forward didn't catch, and then strengthen them so they wouldn't flap apart. They took so long to make that it was a lot more beneficial to us to have them fiberglass moulded, and then if we have a crash, it's not a 5-hour job to repair it. We can just throw some wings on, send it on its way. We've got, I think we've covered pretty much everything under engine bay. The thing you can see here, but I can't demonstrate it really. This is one of our short shift kits, so we've moved this over an offset bush, and this is also moved as well, so we've got a shorter shift. That we'll try and see if you can visually see it inside a bit, but this is not a factory inside either. We've swapped the N75 from the big vacuum block, which is quite heavy and complicated. We've swapped that to a single one, but that's not too important. And then we've got custom made bonnet vent. We had these made to our specs. Got a little gurney on the front, so the idea of this is, rather than the air getting forced into the radiator and then just either trying to come out the back here where we've got this vent, or just getting pressurised up in the engine bay, it'll come out of these vents and away you go. That's something that's free in our championship. It's not always something you can have, so before you build a car, check with stuff like that. Bonnet pins, got the air catch ones. We've painted these so that you can see when they're up because we've had them come up on us. So this is the bumper we run. We had these, we made this originally. It didn't look pretty when we made the mould. Well, that were a pattern, should I say, for the mould. But then this bumper we've had them replicated. We've sold a few of them now. Dylan's running one on his Ibiza this year. The splitter is as close to the regs as we can get it as far as how big it can be. Obviously we've done a big wide mouth opening to get it where we want it to be. Fog light openings have been used for the brake ducts that we talked about. And obviously it's all one piece. If we have an accident, we can just stick another one on. We're not spending hours making another bumper. That's one of the reasons why we did the wings. The regulation height for the splitter is 40mm off the ground, which if you put your splitter 40mm off the ground, you'll realise that's very low. And if you touch a curb, just smash this to bits. So what we decided to do was make it about 40mm higher, something like that. 40mm higher than the regulation, so like 80mm. And then we buy this rubber. It's like a garage door seal or something like that. We stick this rubber on there, which this has had a bit of hammer now. It probably wants a fresh one on. But we've put this on because we want this to be as low as we can, get the downforce, get the front end to bite in. We are ripping it off every time we touch a curb. So that works. These little gurneys that we've got on here, we used to run these last year, and we realised at Rockingham we're just getting absolutely ridiculous tyre temperatures. Couldn't figure out why. And then just on the way home after the practice, and we were just disheartened because we thought we're going to be racing tomorrow and we're just going to melt these tyres. We ended up having to run different tyres on the front compared to the rear because we just burnt out the set that we got. I just had an epiphany that we'd run these pretty much all year, but that was one of the hottest days that we'd raced on. Every other race that we'd had, and pretty much every other track day we'd had, it not been as sunny as that day. Everybody's saying, oh, it's just Rockingham, it's a tyre killer. But everybody run the same tyres as us that day. We're saying, oh, these are old tyres that we've run for years. We've had these on 2 sessions and no problem. So I can't remember ever having any tyre temps when we took these off. So for the day after, straight into qualifying, didn't really have any other option. We just ripped these off, went out, and the tyres didn't even get hot. We ended up, I think, during qualifying, putting some pressure in the tyres because obviously they pump, when they get hot, they pump right up. So we took them off, had no problem. But then what we found is when the temperatures dropped again and we started testing again, we've been struggling to get the temp back in the tyres. So we put these back on, and we've not tested them. We've only put them on. We've only done one test this year. We've put these back on. So if it's going to be damp or wet, we're going to leave these on, block brake ducts, disconnect the anti-roll bars, and then we should get away with not having to tweak the camber and the toe and stuff like that to get the car to get some heat in the tyres. We've done a bit of testing, not it all, obviously. We can't be testing everything, so we're just going to go to the quali, see how we get on. So if these are took off, we're expecting it to be dry. So if it rains and these are off, point and laugh because we're stupid. Class stickers, you've got to have these fluorescent ones as well with your number. We used to be number 13, which is unlucky for some, but Dylan, who runs the other Ibiza, we didn't realise that he's number 13 as well. So if we're running the same championship as him, which is what we're going to do this year, we needed a different number. Polycarbonate windows, which you've got to have them. You can't run normal windows. And what you find when you start putting these in, because they've not got all the UV protections, it just gets absolutely ridiculously hot inside the car, especially in summer. It's just unbearable at times. So what we've done, we've got this, they call them a knacker duct, which is some sort of NASA type stuff. The shape of the duct itself creates a low pressure, and that pulls air in here. So we've got that going in there, and then a little pipe that just sticks behind driver and just blows cold air on you. If it's raining, just plug it up with a ball out in a ball pool or something like that. And that should work. We'll have a little look right outside, and then we'll nip back inside. So the wheels we run, Team Dynamics Pro Race 1.2s. We can run whatever we want in this championship, but we found these are good. We've given them some hammer, hit curbs a load of times, curbed them to death and never cracked or bent one really too badly. Running some 6-pot brakes, floating discs, various different pads. We'll run Mintex, Carbon Lorraine, Pagid, depending on what we're racing in and what we're doing. the tyres for the championship mandated to run Toyo 888s, which we've done quite a bit of extensive testing, and these are definitely not the best tyre. We've got to run these in the wet as well, which is pretty dangerous to be honest, but that's the regs, and it is what it is. Rear brakes, we've kept them standard. There's too much braking on the rear. The only problem we did have with the rear brakes was if we were running cheap pads, they'd fall to bits and just cause you absolute hassle. You pedal and go along, and it weren't good. We've never actually got round to doing it. We're going to put some vented rears on, but we've got, you'll see when we get inside, we're trying hard to get rid of the rear brake bias as much as we can, otherwise you'll brake and slide your handbrake up. You've got to put good pads in the back. Obviously you don't want loads of bite, you just want them to last, and you want them to be able to take the heat. So these are performance friction that we're running at the minute. We've never tested these, they seem to work alright, but we'll probably end up with Padged back in the rear, and then depending on what we're racing in, Padged or maybe the Mintex in the front, depending on how these go. The spoil we've got, this is just a cheap eBay item. We made the brackets, and they just bolt on where the window bolts on, plastic window again. The regulations that we've got, you can't have it any higher than the roof of the car, any wider than the car, and we're probably a little bit further forward than we can be, but you're not allowed to be behind the sort of rear of the car if you draw a line straight up. So we could stick it further out if we wanted to, but spoke to a few people that know what they're on about, and as long as you can get a bit of something underneath, because it's the underneath of the spoil that does all the work, it should be fine. And then we made this little gurney flap, which a lot of people overlook this when they put spoils on. That's probably more important than the spoil itself. It's something ridiculous, like you gain 100% more downforce compared to just the spoiler on itself, and only get 10 or 20% more drag or something crazy like that, but it works. We've got to have a rain light. That's part of the MSA regs in case it gets dark and muggy. You've got to be able to turn that on and people will be able to see you. They'll hold a sign up and tell you to do it. This at the rear diffuser that we made, waste of time to be honest. It don't make any difference, but it meant we could make it look a bit more race car and chop a decent bit of weight out. We've also put the exhaust in the diffuser there. It's the best place for it. We had some trouble with a side exit one of the races we did, and it squashed it shut, and then it ended up getting that on the exhaust. It bent and got closer to the fuel tank, melt the fuel tank, put it on the tank. So now we know we're near that, so lesson learned. Side exits are no good for racing. You'll be lower than the curbs if you go off-roading. Because we've got the duct on the other side, you need to be able to get the air out if you're not opening the front windows. So we've got one of these that screw it, that you just drill an hole in and just shove it in. You can open that as well. I think we'll probably be able to see a bit more looking inside from this side. So we've got some plastic door cards. You could go crazy with carbon fibre and all that stuff, but like we said with this championship, lighter you go, less power you can have anyway. So it's a fine balance. I do think the lightest possible car is going to be better, but the problem you've got with running a big turbo that likes revving, if you're too light, you can't have as much power, which means you might as well have a smaller turbo, but then you might not rev as much. That's the problem with a diesel engine in a race car. Really what you want to do is have the turbo at a nice, comfortable sort of boost pressure, and obviously a certain amount of power that's going to let you have a decent power band. Like I say, if you have to drop the power down, like if we could only have 180 horsepower at the flywheel, for instance, we'd want a lot smaller turbo, but then that wouldn't rev, so then we might not make the power where we want it. You don't want loads of torque real low down, especially when it's wet. So you don't want to go too light anyway, or you don't need to go too light. So the roll cage in this, we made this ourselves to the MSA regulations, which are fairly straightforward. It seems really daunting at first, but you've just basically got to have door bars, your front legs, your main hook with a diagonal in it. You don't need to have anywhere for your harnesses to go, but that's the best place for them to go. You don't even need a diagonal in the back as far as I remember. Well, fairly straightforward cage, but we did this ourselves, all TIG welded, so it's probably above specification where it needs to be. We are going racing in Europe this year, and we're going to probably have to put they call it an FIA bar, because it's coming to effect because of the FIA. We're going to have to put a bar from here down to the front end. It's got to be one straight bar, and it's got to intersect this bend here. Because this part's got two bends in it, you've got to have another straight going down, which is not a problem on the passenger side, but on the driver's side it's going to get quite close to your legs, and it's already an absolute pig to get in and out of, so we'll have to have a snap off steering wheel and do all that stuff. This here is where the passenger seat normally lives. There's 3 of these, 30 kilograms total. That's because we've got a turbo, so they don't distinguish between diesel and petrol in this championship. There'd be nobody racing a naturally aspirated diesel unless they had a car that weighed 100 kilograms. So we get penalised for that. We've took the passenger seat out just because we needed it in another car. We could leave it in and just have a little bit more power because of the extra weight. Flock the dash. Steph at SRS has done that. Stops all the reflections. It's looking a bit tired now. It's been in a couple of years and had a lot of hammer. The shifter that we've got here, that's a TT one, which is slightly offset, so it's in a bit better position for us, a bit nearer to the driver, and we've put it above, so again it's a bit near to the driver without having to extend the actual lever, which would make it even worse. Battery cut off, that's a secondary one, that's just so we know it's off. We've got the solid state one there as well. That's got to be able to be done from the driver's reach and from outside the car in case a marshal wants to stop it. Then we've got the HD2 V-box in this as well. The camera facing forward, camera there facing back. Helmet net, you don't need one of them, but we've got one just in case we want to throw some stuff in the back of there. Roll cage padding, you've got to have some if your head can touch it, which it does on this. The brake lines, where they can, are all routed in the car, and what we've got here, we've actually got 2 bias valves, so like I was talking about earlier, the rear brakes are already too good. So we're going to leave a type in case we want to, on the fly, get a little tweak, but pretty much most of the time it's all the way off there, and this one all the way off on less brake there. So people said that wouldn't work, but it does. It stopped us locking rears up when we were racing it. I think we were at Silverstone one time, and it was causing us loads of hassle. Motor drive seat, this one used to be in the BMW, but we've put this in here now because we're running this exclusively for racing at the minute. Best seats you can get. The OMP steering wheel. We'll go round, we'll probably be able to see some of this stuff if we go back round again. It'll be easier for me to tell you what the driver can see from the driver's side. So OMP steering wheel, you can get loads of cheap knockoff versions of these, but we've seen so many bend and snap that you don't want them to be slitting your wrist, so don't buy a cheap one. This is the display for the lap timer. So this, what you do, you set your reference lap, so you either set it to the fastest lap, so it'll constantly keep setting to your fastest lap, or if I'm trying to beat Scott, I'll set it to one of his laps, so I know it's a good one to compete against, and I'll just chase it and it'll tell you whether you're ahead or behind all the way around the track. The gauges we've got in, we've got oil and water, boost and EGT. Now these are, you don't need these for racing, but it's a good idea to keep an eye on stuff. It's always better to know what's going on. Obviously if your EGT start getting hot and it starts flashing at you, then you might have to just back off. If obviously water starts boiling and getting to 120, 130 degrees or whatever, you have to just back off and retire. You might save an engine by having it, but you don't need them. But we've just got them in there just because we stripped it out. There's no carpet, grip tape floor pan. We've made another dead pedal. We used to just leave the original foam dead pedal in there, but it eventually just fell to bits. So we've got that in there, bit of grip tape on them so you don't slip. Shroff harnesses, I don't think I mentioned them.
Look, a penny!
And then this here is like an arm restraint type net. This is not mandatory in UK, but we've got this. This is for when we're going to Europe. They say you've got to have these so your arms don't come out. I think a lot of cars in Europe run without windows. I think that's one of the reasons. We've got wide angle mirror. That's good because you don't really need to use the side mirrors as much because you've got this. But good visibility in a track track card especially. Race car, obviously, you're more bothered about squidding in front of you, but you still need to know if you're cutting somebody up, because you'll still get a steward's inquiry and get yourself in some trouble. This little cheap timer that we've got here, this one's that's just literally for the pit stops. We'll just, what I generally do when I'm racing, just start that when there's all the 5 second or 30 second board up before the start of the race. Then you know after, I think it's 15 to 30 minutes as a pit stop window. At some point after 15 minutes I've got to come in and let Scott have a go, or vice versa. And you just glance up at that when you're entering pits, and then you can time your pit stop as near to perfection as you can. I think we're a couple of seconds out last time, and Scott sped by 0.6 kilometres an hour or something, and got a penalty. So the pit stops, we had a lot of these races are won and lost, but obviously you need to be competitive on track. Standard handbrakes, not a drift car, don't need to do out weird with that. This is a controller for the electric water pump, another extinguisher button, 12 volt just in case we need to blow tyres up or something and we know we're near an outlet. This switch turns the electric water pump on flat out if we want to turn the fans on. Could have the rain light on, and that's got to be on a permanent as well. That can't be on a switch live. And that one there, I think that was for water injection, which we ain't got it anymore because it was running out before end of the race if we turned it up enough. So we just took that variable out of the equation. So there's not much else to talk about in front. We'll just have a look what you can see in back. So this is where V-Box normally lives. That's just getting played about with A5 is one of the things we're trying to do. Odyssey racing battery there. This one's quite big and probably too big for the job, but we found the smaller ones are just rubbish and just knack up all the time. You'd stall it in a race and or on a track day, and you'd come to crank it and there's nothing there. Battery will just completely flat even after you've been using it for half an hour, so that's no good. That's part of the battery isolator, it does the earth, and then you can. The other bit on this here as well is to turn the ECU off, so if you take the earth off a battery, that ain't going to stop it. You have to interrupt the ECU. That is the other side of the diffuser, so we chopped all the spare wheel. That got a fair bit of weight out there where it didn't need to be. And then I've realised the one thing I've not talked about, which is probably one of the most important parts about this car, is the suspension. So it's not very low really. We're running just some BC coilovers, originally sort of fast road track use, whatever they describe them as. We had these on for all last season pretty much, and we had no trouble with them. We've never bust one, we've never bent one, never broke one, and we just said, what can we do to get them a little bit better? Spoke to the guy who originally helped us with a Rosa suspension. He revalved it and did specify some different springs, and these are what springs we're running. Run E-back. I can't remember exact poundage now. They'll be on spec list. It'll be in description. We're running these E-back springs. What do you think? This is how much it weighs. This is what tyres we run. This is what tracks we know we're running. This is our heavy car. Everything. Told him everything about the car as much as we could possibly tell him. And he says, the springs you're running, fine. They're exactly what I'd specify anyway. The dampers, let's get them on the dyno and see. Put them on the dyno, and they're good for road use. It always drove nice on the road, which obviously tells us that it's not going to be the best on the track. He says, I'll change some little bits inside. I think it was, say, 150 quid a damper or something like that. Not ridiculous money, obviously expensive in comparison to what they cost new, but compared to true motorsport stuff, not too bad. We had them done, put them on, told us what to adjust if we weren't happy with the balance, put them on, and I can't remember the exact figures, and it weren't an 100% exact test, there's always weather difference and stuff like that, but same tyres, same power, same track, something stupid like 2.5 seconds a lap quicker. So it makes a massive difference having the correct valving on your shocks. So if you're serious about racing, obviously get your car somewhere near, obviously get your anti-roll bars where they want to be and stuff like that, and just try it. We've had to undo some stuff and scale like the anti-roll bar settings back a little bit, which we're running white line front and rear. We've had to scale them back a little bit, but not a lot. the anti-roll bars are not really too dictated by the shocks. Obviously if you've got no anti-roll bars, your shocks need to be a lot stiffer. So that made a massive difference. We've got the Mark 5 camber adjustment on the top, which we did a Facebook post about that. We realised that the strut tops were moving quite a bit independently, so we put a strut brace on and done that. The bushers are all power flex, and then we saw earlier that we've got the extended ball joints, which the extended ball joints and the valving in the shocks, that's pretty much the two things that make this car good. A lot of people, we've posted up loads of videos of our car and they're like, oh, I had one of these and it was the worst handling car I've had, and them sort of things. We're doing pretty well. We've done a few top 3 finishes. The lap times we're doing are sort of, compared to last year, are going to be up there. Not saying podium, but it looks good. So yeah, and me and Scott are not the best drivers in the world, far from it. We're not pushing us, look with how much power we've got. There's a lot of people claim that other people are cheating in this championship, which some cars are fast. You know what I mean? When we're sat against them on the straight and they come out of the corner all over the place and then they're dragging you on the straights, you know there's something not right, but we're not there to cheat, we're there to fair and square, have a good laugh. And this car does it. We're always pretty good on fuel, which we'll do. The tank's 49 litres, about 9 litres when the light comes on, that's like the reserve. So to 40 litres on the track, getting about 120 miles at race pace and like 150, maybe even more on a track day. So it sounds rubbish, I can't remember exactly what that works out miles per gallon, it's definitely not in double figures, but when you consider we'll be racing against say an EP Civic Type R that's going to use probably 3 times as much fuel. They're having to run, to do a 45-minute race, some of these people are having to run bigger tanks, they can't even run a standard tank. We're not even filling this to the top, we might only put 30 litres in. So we're hoping, we've done a post, I don't know if it's gone live yet, and a blog about it, probably live by the time this goes out. I'm going to try and do the Birkett Enduro at the end of the year. It's a 6-hour race, relay race, and they love it when people go with 5 of the same car or 4 of the same car. So we've got Dylan in his Ibiza, we've got our Ibiza, we've got our BMW, which will get stickered up if we don't get any, but it'd be mint if we could get another couple of Ibizas or similar, at least diesels, that we can tune and they can race with us. So hopefully this will be a bit interesting. Anything I've missed, the full spec will be in the comments below, in the sort of description, sorry. If you like it and you want to know anything else, ask us in the comments. If the comments get that long that we need to do another video, we can. But we'll try as best to answer everybody's comments unless they're just asking stupid stuff that don't require an answer. But yeah, thank you for watching. Subscribe.